Twyla Kilgore has released her squad list for the U.S. women's national team's upcoming friendlies against Colombia. And though it's mostly similar to the September squad, there are a couple of changes, most notably Olivia Mtry receiving her first call-up to that senior national team, and Becky Sauerbrunn makes her return to the roster after a lengthy injury that kept her out of the Women's World Cup. I want initial reactions here on Olivia Mtry to begin with. First call up.
It's a lot of youth suddenly on the squad, right? Between she and Alyssa Thompson, the average age just drops.
It drops, yeah.
Right? I think that obviously she's earned her spot, but she's had a long, arduous journey just to go pro, which didn't happen all that long ago. It'll be interesting to see how everything shakes out. I'm excited for her.
I think why not give her a shot at this? I mean, you look at the roster, 27 players called in by Twyla Kilgore. That is a large number of players that you never see that on a national team roster, even for friendlies. So
that is the max number, right?
It is the max, yes. And often the U.S. doesn't even utilize the max. Right when even they go in to play these friendlies against Colombia, you can't roster that many players. So a lot of them will sit out, and we see that often. I would be shocked if Mtry gets minutes. But we'll see. I like that they bring her into a camp at this point, see how she fits in with the squad, and the midfield is they're a little thin there at the midfield position. So why not bring in Mtry, a young player, get her some reps in camp and some touches on the ball around some really senior national team players.
Lisa, we continue the conversation about these young players. Jaden Shaw in this mix as well, someone that we saw at the last camp, but just happy to see her back in there because I know early in the season we were thinking, come on, get her a call up in, get her in, and now she's in this mix as well. Are we happy to see that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Jaden Shaw. Yes, I know we're all super happy. We've been talking her up this entire show since the start of it. So I think I'm super happy. I hope she gets some minutes because I personally love her as a 10, and we're constantly saying Rose is injured a lot, who slides into that position, who's challenging that position even. And so I think this young player who's shown that she's playing like she's 26, 27 years old, and you can still develop her and bring her in early, and she has more of a physical presence, in my opinion, could be really, really good for this national team, and I think good for the Olympics. Get her some minutes this camp. Bring her in consistently. I think she'll rise to the occasion and thrive.
And if you put her in the 10 and Alex Morgan ahead of her, they already play like that at their club. Yeah. So they've got that familiarity and that relationship together. I'd like her in the 10. She's listed as a forward on this roster, so I'm not sure where she'll play or how that'll rotate around. But, I mean, rosters and positions are so,
well, Well, if we're going to take Darian's word here, Rose Lavelle is not on this roster, and if you do want her kind of slotted into that spot because Rose had been out with injuries, that's somewhere that we can see her. We'll see what Twyla Kilgore does there. But I think my bigger question is, are there any players that you think shouldn't have been in this call-up or that are maybe someone you want to see called up that did not get the call-up?
Savannah Mascal. She has had such a great season with Angel City. How can you not call her up? I think she's developed a lot since the last time she was brought into the national team and completely changed her game, and I think she sees the game so much quicker than before. And she's always been technically sound, but I think she looks like she's playing with happiness and joy, and it's emanating in how she's scoring, how she's assisting, she's setting other people up, she's doing tricks and flicks, and just the player that I think we knew her to be, that maybe she lost some confidence from when she didn't get called in before, and she's soaring high right now. So I would have loved to see her in this camp. I think she would be a great addition to the national team.
Especially because the midfield is thin and there's a lot of injuries that they're dealing with there. I think that it's a good shout for sure because you could slot her into that role. I think that we might see Emily Sonnet play higher into the midfield as well. We saw that at the very end of the World Cup for the United States, and she's played in the defensive midfield role throughout OL Reign's season this year. And without Julie Ertz, she's now retired. She's no longer in there, and it's only Andy Sullivan kind of that plays that role. So you need to have a bit more depth in that position. But okay, if we're making shouts for who's not on this roster, I'm going to go goalkeeper Jane Campbell.
Yes.
She has former national team caps, and she's been in that environment before. She led the NWSL with the stingiest defense and the best goals against average.
And most saves.
And the most.
She had like 30 clean sheets by October 1.
And most save stat is so often skewed because sometimes a team can let up so many shots. Houston led up the 4th most shots this year, so they weren't top of that that stats wise, and there was a good 25-30 shots separating 1 from 4 in those standings. Jane's a really good goalkeeper, and she's been consistent for Houston over the last couple of years. She stays healthy. I think she deserves a shout. Just get some more reps in there. But goalkeeper is such a competitive and hard position to rotate.
I would also argue Jane is up there with Aubrey with how good she is with her feet. I think her distribution is top tier, and that's something that she has over the other keepers. And I do think her national team opportunities were cut fairly prematurely. So I agree, Lisa. This is a really good shout for a player that should have been called in.
Is there anyone that we're not thinking of here? Because I feel like there are a lot of names that we throw out during the season, you know, that I was like, Lola Bonta definitely needs a call-up. I definitely said that a couple weeks ago.
I mean, Iron Woman, Sam Stab, you brought her up earlier. I think so too.
Yeah, she's a really good center back, and she's been so consistent with Washington Spirit. She is a stellar 1v1 defender. She's good aerially. She'll compete for the ball. She's really good at breaking lines with her passes and passing out of the back and keeping possession, plus her set piece opportunities. She's got a killer left foot that can curl into the back post, and you need more weapons like that on a team. We're talking about the players that are leaving and who's coming in. Megan Rapinoe takes a majority of the national team free kicks when she's in. Of course, they've got DeMello, who's a free kick specialist, but why not throw in Sam Staub there? She can be really versatile on both sides of the ball. I mean, Sarah Gordon is also a center back that could slot into there.
So this is one of the things that has always like kind of just been in my mind, but I don't really ever talk about it. Maybe this is a good space for it, is that with these national teams, you sometimes keep the same players a lot because that is like the culture around the team, and that is like the core group, and they have like a way of being, and like the dynamics work within that team. And now we're getting, you know, some new players in. Obviously, a few of those mainstays that have been on the national team for so long are now on their way out, or they're out now. They're not in this camp. What would be like the change or like the look of this team in the sense of like how the dynamics are at play? Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I think it's a different generation. You bring in younger players. We've heard Carly Lloyd talk about how she didn't enjoy watching some players where it's, it's a little bit more media focused and a little bit more light and having fun. So I think that is a different dynamic, and that's going to be really difficult to manage, especially if you have some veterans who have created this culture, and then you're having to welcome in this new generation who is coached differently, managed differently, have to manage.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah,
yes.
So that's a difficult job, but I do think that because it's leaning more on the younger side, it's going to be more focused on that generation of the Trinities, the Sophias, the Naomi Girmas, and I'm happy about it. I think the U.S. needed this refresh for a long time.
And they're going to welcome in a new coach soon.
Right.
Hopefully by
and
the
that
end
determines
of the year,
a lot about
which can help
culture.
reset or restructure the culture there.
Yeah, I think that that's incredibly important because sometimes when you have, for example, college, you have 4-year cycles, when we were there for 4 years, and every team or every leadership team has a different style of leading, a different dynamic within the team, and I think that that always becomes incredibly important on how the team is successful or not. In determining, we had a senior group that we would go out and we would party and we would whatever. And then we had a senior group that said absolutely zero alcohol. What is it called when you're a
dry season?
Dry season. And like everyone determines, the leadership group determines the dynamics of the team, and everyone follows lead there. So it's going to be interesting to see what the personality of this next national team is.